All right. This was a talk that James, who's organizing the conference, was like, you should do it so I can organize the conference. So that's what I'm doing. I am Brent Laabs. I'm the chair of the board for the WikiTide Foundation, and we are a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to hosting wikis for general purposes, not necessarily the specific encyclopedic purposes that Wikimedia has, which are very good, but there's room for other things too. So I didn't know other people were going to say really define much better what a wiki farm was, but we provide wiki software as a service basically, and you find out that just the general advice that some SaaS things you can automate really well. We still need more tooling, but of course you're still supporting a lot of different clients, and you can't automate that kind of support, which is definitely something that we do as a volunteer service. Is a challenge for us. And as I said, we're trying to replace Wikipedia, but to help people develop information on all sorts of topics. Hey, this will probably help. So you might have heard of Mirrorhees before, at least the people in this room. It's not super great, but we are probably the #1 alternative to fandom right now. And as a free hosting provider, there are a lot of paid hosting providers, but some projects really don't run with that. Right now, we are an educational nonprofit. Just happened last year, finally, and we're hosting over 6,000 wikis right now, and that's about on a $5,000 a year budget. So we're doing pretty good on that. This is a website if you haven't been to it, but we host a lot of different things, and we're just a platform provider. It was originally created as a separate wiki farm last year, but we merged back together with Mirrorhees. And just last Monday, we finally shut down our legacy infrastructure and are entirely on something new here. Everything's back together. So an important point of this is we are run by the community. Everyone here is a volunteer, and something we'd like to change in the future, but for now, everyone is a volunteer. There's a lot of input on community policies, and we are organized as like, a baby WMF. So we have RFCs, we have, a technical division, we have all these things. And this also means that we make the same mistakes as the WMF too. And also there's sort of an impedance mismatch, but we really want to be driven by our users as well. And we don't sponsor particular projects. As I said, we provide a platform to other people who are trying to host their own communities. And so some of these are, who we're supporting is educational institutions like universities. We host a couple of Wikimedia local for Indonesia, spent several years. And this is the Catalan one. We have a cyber law wiki hosted by a NATO institute. So that's my favorite level of all of them. And but in reality, these are smaller wikis. Who is really using the service the most? Well, it's the same kind of things that you see on fandom and wikis.gg, but we have certain things that make our service a little bit better. I'd say Minecraft Japan is probably our #1 user at this point. It used to be All the Tropes, which was my wiki a long time ago, but I have since let other people focus on that so I can focus more on foundation stuff. So, you have games, you have, interest groups, we have whatever the heck the bowling ball people do. So all sorts of things, and a lot of creativity that goes into this. We don't accept every wiki in the world. You can't just go there and create. There is a review process that you have to go through. We wanted to everything because of law. We need to support an educational goal. There has to be some theory that it's educational in some way or another. So, we love to have your categorizing your scientific experiments, but talking about your video games is still a form of literary criticism. It's something that, a university could do. You could write a book report on it. And so there is something educational about that. Or your cookie recipes or anything like that. And, we let communities pretty much moderate themselves. No commercial activity is allowed. If you're doing commercial, you probably don't want to use this. You want to use someone that you support. There's lots of people in the room who offer it. And, no forced WMF wikis because, generally they end up lower quality if somebody tries to invent another Wikipedia. It just doesn't work quite the same way. So right now, our technical resources, we just have 4 dedicated servers. We've done just about every wrong thing that you could do in server design. You've got VPSs on cheap things. We bought our own equipment, for a while in England, and then the energy cost increased so much that we didn't have any maintenance budget. But we're pretty solid right now as virtualized servers, host servers, Getcast proxies around the world, and we do backups. Our technical stack is we try to do everything that the Wikimedia Foundation does. So, Price, Kafka, we've got Matomo going there. We just installed Service Search for everyone. So we're doing, a lot of the things, and we're also doing Central Auth, which everyone has told us don't do it, but we've been doing it for years, and they were probably right, but we're still using it. We're designed around that. I really want to see it. Work on it, people. We're pretty much entirely at this point supported by donations, which is, feels good for the community, but it's also a limit on where we're going. And now that we're a legal nonprofit, we have much more opportunities to pursue grants in the future. But right now, everyone is a volunteer. We get, engineers that are putting in, 20 hours a week for free. It's just really incredible how people can come together and how passionate people are about their wikis. We have, assuming we're the most stable that we've ever been, we have enough to cover our expenses for a year, plus enough to cover it in our recurring donations that are set up. So, after all the concerns of the past, we're at a very stable point. And one of the things, other features is that there are a lot of things that you can do on Mirahis that you cannot do on Fandom, which is our biggest competitor, which, I'm not sure if it's fair to even call us a competitor to them because they're so much bigger, but there's really not a lot of options in the free wiki space these days. So what you can do is you can choose your own skin. You can actually set up multiple skins if you want. We let people full access to interface. We support over 300 extensions. Support's kind of a fuzzy word in this thing, but they're installed and hopefully they're working. And we do keep, to every release we try and install it. So, hopefully things work ahead. And traditionally, because of this, we've been a platform for tech-savvy users. We get users who know how to use a wiki already. They're looking for something better than what they had before. And, they might even write their own extensions that we can install for them after a security review. But as we're getting bigger and wider, we're starting to get more people who don't understand things. And that's another challenge for us moving forward, but that's also a good sign of growth. So what's extensions? We actually, MediaWiki, Cargo, Wikibase, DPL3, portable info box so people can come over from Fandom and use their info boxes without changing things. And some of our internal intentions, like ManageWiki. So this is something that we came up with, several years of development that lets people just go, these are the extensions that we have already approved, and if they want to install it on their wiki, all they do is they come in here and click a button, and Puppet will run, and a few minutes later it'll be enabled on that wiki. And so there are things in there where you can specify, configuration values that you would be able to do in local settings, but it's all online, so we're doing extra validation steps to make sure that they don't screw up things too badly. There are occasionally things where you'll have to put in a GitHub pull request to get the, but that's or ask people for support. But again, everyone's a volunteer, so you don't know how long the support will take. And it does rely on a Create Wiki. Here's some other screens from it, just so you have a taste. They told me no live demos here. So you can assign permissions to a wiki, so you can create custom roles and everything. This is also a foot gun because we've had bureaucrats delete all their permissions to grant privileges. So every once in a while we have to go in and reset things. So obviously more work to be done, but it's really powerful, and we have interfaces where you can just choose all these items. So if you want to find a variable real fast, you just go and type scary up there, and you can go enable scary transclusion. It's just, it's beautiful. Yeah, but we really do offer full access. That's what I mean. It's not so. It's as close as you can get to running it yourself without having to worry about all of the expenses and setting up servers and everything. So we are a wiki software company and software nonprofit. We developed Create Wiki. Unlike ShopWiki, our version works. MediaWiki will show you, something to find all the wikis in the farm, data dumps so that people can create their own dumps without having to export PHP. And then we also have picked up a few extensions that we've been running before from the wider community, because people were using it and then it was unmaintained for a while. And then we're like, well, I guess we'll maintain it so that it will run on the current version. But, hic sic dracones, there are dragons here because we didn't write them. I've gotten complaints from some coworkers about how they were bad quality. And yeah, that's kind of true. We're just adopting them so that they're still available. So, at this point, we do a lot of stuff for it. I think we're a big provider to a lot of the community, but we want to announce that from now on, Mirrorhaze is going to rebrand itself as WikiTide. And there's a lot of reasons behind this. So naming is hard, right? And how do people pronounce it? Is it Mirrorhaze, something like that, right? And this becomes a communication problem with people. And everyone that I actually talk to in person about it, they're going like, well, you get hung up on the pronunciation of what the word is rather than talking about what the great work you're doing is. And so, because we've made so many strides recently in technical stability and organizing ourselves and organizing as a nonprofit, this is the best time that we have. This is a good time to say, hey, we're WikiTide. We're putting Wiki at the center of our mission, where Wikia has taken the word Wiki out and become fandom. We are making it the center of what we do. And so, part of this is ideal is because we're a Wiki host, we don't want our domain name to overcome the subdomains. So you want something memorable, but not so memorable that it overcomes everything else. So now we're past the early startup phase. You're moving forward. So, but I just kind of wanted to talk. How do we even get here? How do we get to this point where we're renaming? So this is a brief history of Wiki Farms, mainly from my perspective. So I'm sure I'm missing a lot of stuff. I was not involved in everything, but so the early days, there was this thing called the Portland Pattern Repository. I'm sure some of you have heard of it. But there were a lot of different wiki engines available. And I was involved in one that was a Moin fork called LocalWiki. And it was actually originally called WikiSpot, of all things. And we were a wiki farm that concentrated on physical communities. So there would be one for Portland, there would be one for my college city of Davis, which is how I got into wikis in the first place. And I had actually gotten 501c3 status for them. And so, but meanwhile, in the MediaWiki community, it was getting a lot of steam because Wikipedia got pretty good. And Wikipedia is a big project and has a lot of support behind it, but it is customized for the needs of Wikipedia. face it, we do a lot of work, but that's what drives projects. But it's gotten so ostensible, it's gotten pretty good. So at the same time, I don't know how many people remember WikiCities. I assume it's a ripoff of GeoCities in some sense, but that's what Wikia originally was called. And I talked about some of this already, but essentially we've kind of become WordPress for our thing. We're ostensible. MediaWiki does all this, and all this. So, but the problem with Wikia is that it's while they are really good, their scale is good, their SEO is really good, that there is advertising everywhere. And, if 60 to 70% of your page is advertising, people start to lose interest in using your platform. And, don't go there with that ad block is my advice. I'm sure that's not their advice, but so there's only limited customization that they allow. The content policy is feedback loop with the advertisers, and community. There really is no community ownership there. And so, for a while there, the only way you could avoid it is to do self-hosting, or you hire someone else to build your wiki. So there's been a need for nonprofit wiki farms for a while. These are really old logos. Tropical Wikis was in 2010. I guess there was a Cool Wikis before that. I just heard at the conference here. But
no, I just made that up.
Oh, you made that up? Oh, okay, cool. So just ignore what I just said. Tropical Wikis is like the first one run by somebody but didn't really want to do it after a while, and it shut down because he was waiting for Orion to open. So they lost their content. Orion opened later that year, and but all the tooling wasn't there for Wiki. So then our founder ran off with the money, and shut down. So, but the good news is that our system ends were able to exfiltrate pretty much all of the backups and put it on a new service that they call Mirages. And if you don't know what that is from, it's from two WMF servers that were named after stars, Mira and Heze, which is like Zeta Virginis. Anyway, so that's what the name is. They thought, oh, this is a good, unique name that no one will sue us over trademark infringement for, and that is definitely true. All right, so this is where I have been involved a little bit more because I've been posted on Orion. And basically, we're going on okay for a few months, and then there was the incident. And the incident was that one of our founders, John Lewis, was office banned by the WMF. And apparently he had a heart attack soon after. So, I mean, the power of the WMF is awesome. Let me just tell you. And so it's a stressful thing if you identify with MediaWiki. And so for a while, we couldn't contact him. And, we're going, is this going to go down too? And since I was probably the largest, stakeholder Wiki, I'm like, oh, yeah. And so our other person, South Park fan, has, obviously, it sounds like a 13-year-old's screen name because it was a 13-year-old. So one of our head engines was a 13-year-old. He's actually really good, but he couldn't legally own any of this stuff and make the contracts. So I took over basically a CFO role where I'm managing the community's finances, and where the community is still making these decisions. I'm just sort of going. So it's nonprofit in that I'm legally owner of all the property now. John eventually did get back and contribute more, but then he left again. And anyway, so it's nonprofit, but mainly in that I'm losing money on it. This is partially my fault. I'm going to confess that I should have made a nonprofit because I'd gone through it before. It was somewhat hard before. And with the new EZ form, it's so much easier to make a nonprofit if you're looking at a small start, which is almost everyone. So, if that's something that you want to do, you can definitely consider you can make a nonprofit on your own these days. So, but I was too lazy to figure this out. And then basically Owen said, I'm going to make an LLC in England. It'll be a nonprofit charity there. And I went, sure, this is great. Go ahead. And he made this new nonprofit, Mary's Limited. But the problem is they never got public charity status in England. It's a little bit more difficult over there. So they weren't able to make that argument. And I was just kind of like, I'm going to let the new people take charge. I'm going to kind of burn out here and let, not get in their way. This is a timeline. Wiki.gg was founded a couple of years later. So you can see people are still trying to leave fandom and fund their own things. This crazy logo one of our people made on April Fool's Day. So none of it. So then you might have heard about a fork. So we were stable, but suddenly there was this new thing that came around called WikiTide. And basically, it's like all of these technical things fall apart. Is there's problems between contributors that get out of hand, and they weren't able to work it out. Like a steward got an interaction ban from trust and safety, and then it got violated. And a lot of the technical staff left because they're all volunteers. There's nothing holding it together at this point. So the technical staff started their own wiki farm, and basically no one backed down. So then the remaining people in Mary's Limited announced they were shutting down. And, for me, who had been out of the project, I'm like, come on, guys, what? And then the rest of the people in this room are like, let's make some money. Now, I'm pretty sure you found out pretty fast there's no money in this. None of you made any money picking up the people that left. And because these are people that don't necessarily have money to spend or are not looking for the kind of full service that you want to provide. They just want somewhere they can put their stuff online, and they don't care how many nines they have. I mean, we have about 1, sometimes 2 nines. Our technical info is pretty falling apart at the end. We bought there were some bad decisions. Anyway, so basically, I was like, okay, I got to save this thing again. So I stepped in. I had to make an announcement fast. And that's probably the hardest single piece of writing that I've ever written in my life. Because you have to pitch in to say, we're strong, we're confident, even though I don't necessarily know exactly what I'm doing. I just know that I've gathered a couple volunteers and we're going to save it somehow. But we knew that because of past experience that the old people in Mary's Limited were going to drag their feet. And we didn't know exactly when they were going to get around to it. But a few months later, towards November, December, they're like, well, the community really has to approve moving over to you and not shutting down. And they're like, okay, fine. So we'll write this. I basically was joking on Discord, we might as well just have an RFC to merge with WikiTide. And then, the next day they're like, yeah, put that in the RFC, guys. We'll definitely take you back. So here I am. The only thing needed for reconciliation was someone to make a joke, apparently. Sometimes, so there's a life lesson. Make the first step. We need to reconcile. So I wrote this RFC. We had a ton of discussion about it. It was about the 60 to 70% in favor of merging into WikiTide, who had since gotten their nonprofit status, which is a big upgrade for us. So now that we can do things nonprofit, and they invited me to join their board, and I am the chair of the board. So now we're pretty stable, and so WikiTide, we kind of like that as a new identity, but doesn't mean there's still not stuff to do. So this is from my background in academia. I'm like, oh, what are the challenges for the future, right? We always need more funding. So, we're growing. We're going from small to medium size, and we're getting more non-technical users, as I mentioned. So we're going to need more tooling around that and more people to help them. And ultimately, what we really need is grants. Because as I said before, there's no money in doing this directly. Where our donations, we could do more, but we're not going to we're not going to grow from 5,000 a year in donations up to enough to pay a salary. And that's what we need to get to. We're interested in looking at grants. I don't think we're eligible for any WMF grants. They seem to be targeted not towards development at all. And I think there's political reasons behind that, but so it goes. That's a challenge that we're going to need to work on. Also, same thing, more rules and documentation. We also have a fairly young user base, people who hang out on wikis who are not doing it for work or document important things, are people with a lot of free time. And it's just a continual challenge as we grow to handle that. I'm sure fandom has the same challenges in moderation. But the other thing is that because we don't have a central project like Wikimedia, there's no Wikipedia, and so it's sometimes hard to notice people who could be volunteers because they might be out somewhere just running their wiki really effectively. And this is kind of how I feel about it. So J.R.R. Tolkien had a word that he used to describe some of the events like the eagles showing up at the end with his eucatastrophe is sometimes things fall together. Sometimes things, when they're in their darkest hour, turn out for the best. And I really feel like, Providence or whatever has saved us at this point. We somehow managed to fail in such a way that we are stable now. And we have a large board. And we have a lot of technical volunteers. And we're a 501c3 nonprofit. And, everything is good and we're hosting and we're growing. So, I'm really happy with where we are now. We're at a point where we're not being sold for profit, and we hopefully can provide more service for everyone and host. We already got 6,000, maybe the next 10,000, 20,000 wikis. So basically, the people who wanted a foundation running dedicated to software, well, we're kind of it. We are a platform. We concentrate on running Wikimedia software. Might be a decade late, but we're here finally. Thanks to my sponsor. So remember I said we don't make any money? Ike has graciously, provided for my pussy here. And if you actually want, someone to enterprise support or anybody who is answerable to creating your wiki, yeah, go to WikiTide. They're good. So, that's it, or a foundation for your community projects. Thank you.
So I heard there was something like called WikiForge.
Yeah.
Is that still around?
Yeah, it is. I don't want to mention them because of my sponsor, and they're technically a competitor.
Okay.
Okay. So what happened there was, originally there was an RFC, because that's how we do things in that community. Like, hey, can we have a for-profit branch of our community? Because, people wanted to make some money and do some things that we're not able to do. Like, we can't do SSO, we're running central law. We can't do a lot of things. And they're going, well, maybe we can sell supported wikis and give some of the proceeds back into the farm. And so that was approved on Mirahis, but not necessarily by the board. And then they basically went off and did their own thing. And actually, if you look at my bonus slide here, as they basically did a lot of things, they did a lot of experiments in WikiForge. So WikiForge is basically the same people as some of the same technical people. Half the board works on WikiForge. James and I are the people who don't, the people here. But they offer some dedicated hosting of wikis, and you can do some custom things there. We're not actually affiliated. It's just a lot of the same people. I think their original intention was that we would be, if people wanted more, they could pay for it. But, it's one of those things currently they're making money, but only because they're not paying themselves, which is not really the best business model.
That's okay. I did it for quite a few years.
Yeah.
So that's fine.
I mean, there's a lot of people who are passionate about wikis enough, and that says a whole lot about our community.
Thank you.
All right,
So
we should move along. I just wanted to tell
Okay.
you that on the live stream, there are 3 comments that can be best described as being fans of yours. Go
Yay!
you. So, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.